Hello and welcome to the demo video for Big Data group number 13. We made an election tweet analyzer for the upcoming US 2016 presidential elections, for which these candidates are still being nominated from the two political parties. This is the front end that we made for our project. Here we can see the total number of tweets that we gathered, around 80,000, which corresponds to about 800 MB of data. What we first visualized is the location for the tweets which did have location, where the tweets were coming from in the map using Google APIs. And as we can clearly see, since we were filtering our streaming Twitter API for tweets about the candidates in these elections, most of the tweets are from the USA because it's the US presidential elections. Here we can see a heat map for sentiments in the tweets that we captured. Red corresponds to negative sentiment, blue corresponds to positive sentiment, and again, it shouldn't be surprising about politics. Most of the tweets were negative in tone. At least that's what the Alchemy API told us. Here, and we can clearly see the pie chart for the sentiment, which corresponds to the map that we just saw. 48% negative tweets, and the rest distributed between positive and neutral almost evenly. The user profile of the users that tweeted about the candidates. Heavy users are the ones who have tweeted the most from their Twitter account, their Twitter status, and as we can clearly see, most of the tweets that we gathered were from heavy users because they tweet the most often. We gathered data for 5 candidates, as we can clearly see here: Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump, Bernie Sanders, Ted Cruz, and Ben Carson. Let's look at the data we have and the analysis that we performed for Donald Trump. This is the geographical location again of the tweets about him. This is the sentiment analysis. Most of the tweets about him happen to be negative. And this is the word cloud for tweets about Donald Trump. As you can clearly see, there was a video recently about an eagle attacking him, so the word bald eagle shows up in the word cloud about him. Top hashtags in the tweets about Donald Trump again correspond to statements that people make in tweets about him, and about his campaign slogan, Make America Great Again, shows up there. Netanyahu comes up there, and other things that he tweets about that occur in tweets about him more often, like ISIS or Muslim or something like that. Another thing that we implemented was we wanted to find out in tweets about a particular candidate how often other candidates are spoken about. So we visualize this in the form of a graph where two nodes appearing closer together have more co-occurrences in tweets about them. So tweets about Donald Trump have Hillary Clinton referred to very often. So they're located closer together with a higher link width between them. And the size of the nodes correspond to the number of tweets that we gather about that particular candidate. So most of the tweets that we happen to have gathered in the same amount of time, we gathered more tweets about Donald Trump as compared to, say, Ben Carson, which have very little tweets about him. So his node size is smaller. This is a force directed graph that we visualized using D3JS. So you can move this graph about as shown. We can also search for a particular keyword and see how often it shows up in tweets about a particular candidate. So Hillary Clinton faced this scandal in Libya about Benghazi and her emails, and as clearly we can see, tweets about Hillary Clinton have the word Benghazi show up more often in them. Another thing that we implemented was we can search for a term, check the first Google result for that term, check and find out the sentiment in that page, and what concepts are being talked about. So let's search for Ted Cruz and Ben Carson, and what we get is the first Google result, which is life, faith, and politics for both candidates. It has people talking negatively, and these were the concepts in that page: immigration to the US. So again, something that we would expect people to be talking negatively about. And then we can get corresponding data for Hillary Clinton and heat map, sentiment chart, user profile, word cloud, and top hashtags as well. An important thing to be noted here is how we implemented all this. So we ran our Twitter streaming API on a server where we gathered all the data and stored it in an SQL database. We fetched all the data to this client that we are seeing from the server and made all the visualizations on the client for stuff like term analysis, which we call semantic analysis. We send this query to our server, and which sends back a result about how many times this term was appearing in tweets about various candidates. So that was our presentation. Thank you so much for listening.